Go. We're good? Good afternoon, everyone. Calling the Albany Housing Authority Board of Commissioners meeting
Okay, thank you.
to order. Today, Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. Welcome, everybody, and Happy New Year. I don't believe we have any speakers registered. Please note that the agenda reflects a week ago.
Yes, they just didn't update it.
Okay. I'll ask for approval of December 10th, 2024, for Commissioners meeting minutes. May I have a motion?
Motion made.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
We now have, as this is our first meeting of the year, an opportunity to elect the chair and vice chair. As a current chair, I will remove myself from nominations for chair. I'll ask for a nomination for chair.
Nomination made. Michael Whalen.
Can I get a second? All in favor? Aye. Well, thank you once again for the vote of confidence.
Done a great job.
Does that come with a cocktail?
Year after year, it's getting less and less.
Unless I come with a cocktail.
Yeah.
No, I guess not.
Note to self, bring a pen or something for everybody.
Nominate you.
Apparently I've,
You know what it was, when you said that, I think it threw folks off, because I saw the look on Mark's face.
listen, you know, you guys don't have to explain yourself, I understand.
No, you had that look like.
Getting old. Anyway, thank you very much.
Absolutely,
It's our pleasure. Thank you for what you do, Mike.
yes.
And I would like to, nominate Kelly Kimbrough for the vice chair position. Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations to both of you.
Like, along with everything.
Enough. I know. Thank you, congratulations. Yeah, well deserved.
Look forward to another year of doing some good work for the good people of the Housing Authority, our staff, and our residents. You know, it's a great opportunity to spend a just quick moment reflecting on the great work our staff does, ensure that the mission of the Housing Authority is upheld and that our residents receive best possible accommodations that they would have. I think, you know, we've touched briefly on some of the political tenure of the nation right now and the tenuousness of the good work we do. But I also think it's a time to really emphasize the importance of it. Because without us, you know, as I was reflecting, you guys weren't here. I was walking in and, you know, as I do in Earl Street, walked past a guy who was out in the cold. He didn't have a coat on. And I'm pretty sure, you know, I was checking for a pulse. He had expired out in the cold. I waved down a policeman and they took over. You know, without what we do, that situation would be so much more heightened. We live in a country that provides for this benefit for those who need it the most. And while we are a small little blip on the grander scheme of all, you know, the homelessness and issues around homelessness. The work we do here in the city of Albany is incredibly meaningful, and I am grateful to be a part of it.
I agree.
So thank you.
Too. Sir, well said, Mike.
On to our resolutions and the business at hand. Item number 012501, resolution appointing Chiquita DeHarbo as contracting officer for Albany Housing Authority. I don't think this needs a great deal of explanation,
Not at all.
so I would ask for a motion to approve.
Lunch?
Ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, all the way around. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Item number 01-25-02, resolution approving a contract for sewer maintenance services. Rita?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman. Well, this is our routine service for sewer, and drain maintenance services. The contract has currently, coming to an end and has exhausted all extensions. We went out to bid. Saw Plumbing was the only vendor that actually responded, thus was the sole, proposer. So, furthermore, we decided to go with Saw Plumbing, who we have been working with for years, and just asking for your approval to renew this contract.
Any questions, comments, concerns? May I get a motion to approve? May I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 01-250-03, resolution approving change orders regarding the kitchen renovations at Westview Apartments, and authorizing the executive director to execute the same. Gita?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, again. Back in September, you actually approved, the resolution to, provide this kitchen renovation services at Westview with Pike Construction. Currently, there were two, situations that came up. One was there was an item that was through the cabinet line that was proposed initially, that is no longer available, so they're now looking for an, approved or alternative. In addition to that, there was some final construction drawing labeling issues, which resulted in additional outlets needing above the sink and needing to be relocated as future safety concerns may arise. That being said, we're asking you today to approve $135,400 in a draft, worth of change orders for the period of the entire project. And basically what that means is that as we look for alternative, products, and we work through some of the issues as it relates to the outlets, there may be other change orders that we might need to address that might not be currently visible to us. So by approving this change order, which currently the discussion and final dollar amount is currently under negotiations, this amount also allows for a 10% contingency that might be any unexpected issues that might come along. So we're basically asking, and not necessarily saying that this is what we're going to spend in change order, but it allows us that wiggle room if there's any issues without us having to come back to the board.
Got it. So that's about $13,500 contingency, about that, yeah.
135.
Total. But of that, $13,500 is the contingency that we're adding into that.
No, so
Or is that in addition to it?
The initial contract was 1.3 million. So it's actually the 10% of that, which is the 135,400.
Okay, so this is the contingency that
Yes.
we're talking, the whole thing is a contingency and we're not looking at just an additional.
Correct.
Understood.
So it will be, what you're looking at is what you passed in September, I believe. It was, so just for the point of clarification, it was $1,354,000. We're asking for 10% on top of that as a contingency for any
Cost overrun.
There you go.
Understood.
All right?
I think
And what we're trying to do moving forward is just to,
Is that enough?
well, we're hoping that it will be, based on what they've found just thus far. But also, I guess what we're trying to do is make sure that we ask for that contingency moving forward with projects, just to allow us that wiggle room if anything comes up without having to pause or, having to come back to the board.
And that's built in
10%
there.
has been somewhat of the average, Chairman. I mean, if there's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
need to extend
So,
it more,
from
but
a-
I think, go ahead.
From a procurement standpoint, does that affect, or if you, on a go-forward basis, you get two proposed bidders and they're separated by less than $10,000, right? And you're building a contingency in for the successful bidder of 10%, does that effectively cause a procurement issue because you've eliminated one bidder who was within that cushion?
I think that when you, as it relates to procurement, and I will ask our general counsel to
You
chime
understand
in.
the like,
And I just,
I could go in there.
well, you can if you like.
Well, here's my
And you-
thought on it.
okay.
So, if you're gonna add 10% to the lower amount and 10% to the higher amount, right? The lower amount is still the lower of the two bids, right? And it's, moving forward,
yeah, but understood, but say the lower amount needs the 10% at the end through change orders, but the within 10,000 didn't need it and was able to perform the job for the exact amount that they bid.
but both bidders are bidding on the same exact job with
Right.
the same exact requirements.
With the 10%.
Right, so the 10% arguably, if everything is done properly, would apply to both, because they're both bidding on the same terms.
Use or otherwise.
Right.
Right.
And I was also going to add that, when we do procurement, there's other factors that we look at that it's not always the sole dollar amount. It does help, but there's other factors in terms of their ability. We don't necessarily always choose the lowest bidder.
Yeah, it's
Still talking about salt.
lowest response.
At this point.
We're talking about using that as an example. But moving forward, the plan is that when we put a resolution
You would always
together,
build it.
to basically put a line in that says, so-and-so is granted the contract for whatever, $1.1 million. And then add a second number 2 to the resolution, which says, and contracting officer, in this case, the executive director, will have the authority to sign change orders up to 10% of that, so we don't have to come back and discuss it. Because the procurement policy requires anything over $50,000 to
Right.
be approved by you. This would be resolving that particular issue and allowing the contracting officer to sign the change orders without coming back.
But would it ever, to my original point, is that enough? What if it does go above?
Then we'd have to come back.
You have to come back, correct? Yeah.
Mhm.
And if it's over 10%, you should be coming back.
Sure, right, exactly, that's a good number. We would want to come back.
And, but if it, I guess after they do the work, because they're agreeing to do the work regardless of whatever it is, that's not.
No, so what ends up happening is if, by coming back, it slows the project down because they are not going to do the work. They're not going to continue to do the work that's needed or set out in the change order until we've signed it. We can't sign it until
So we
you
approve
approve it. So it slows down the project. They don't go ahead and just do it. And this is arguably additional work that was not specifically included in the original contract.
And typically it's unexpected issues such as, one of the line items that is no longer available, so now we have to look for alternatives, and then there's relocation of, outlets, and whatever else they might, find behind the walls, you just never know, so it allows that, wiggle room to make those corrections without having to come back to the board.
Good.
So, yeah, I mean, do we have, and I thoroughly support this, I'm just curious as to, you know, if the dollar amount gets bigger, obviously, your ability to approve 10% gets bigger. So you get a $4 million, or, you know, in the case of taking down Lincoln, we're $6 million. That's giving you $600,000 of essentially discretionary authority to approve without board input, which again, I don't have a problem with. Do we have examples of how often that happens?
Change orders, are you referencing, or just the
Yeah,
need to go above?
yeah, large dollar amount. Well, just off the top, I can't think of too many times it does happen.
I would say over the course of my 25 years, most construction projects has a change order.
Right, and I mean, how many
So it
times you had to
always
come back to the board?
How many times have we had, so I will answer the question, how many times have I come back to the board? Not very many, but how many times have these incidents occurred, over my course of 25 years? Quite often.
Yeah. I mean, there's always gonna be changes
Right.
to projects, I understand that too.
And a
I'm just trying-
contingency of 10%, that's normal.
That's
Pretty
correct.
modest,
Yeah.
But this allows us, because
within scope of project size.
Mhm.
You know, again, you get to something like taking down Lincoln, which by the time we get to take down Lincoln, could be somewhere between $6 and $10 million.
well, you know, to your point, I can propose possibly, and you can chime in, maybe, developing a resolution that will allow up to a certain amount where, I mean,
That's what
basically, your
sort of where
comfort.
I'm going with.
Right, so.
And I'm thinking off the top of my head, you know, and it's more of an input and a notification thing and less of a, you know,
Absolutely,
so.
and I would feel more comfortable as well.
So maybe somewhere around $500,000 as a, or 250 as a max,
I
250.
think anything above
Yeah.
that, if we had a conversation 250, I would say to Kitty, you know what, we need to
We
get.
need to go back.
Yeah, so why don't we-
Wouldn't feel comfortable.
Comfortable, right.
So why don't we build that in to the, you know, we'll approve this
Okay,
based on this, but create a resolution next month.
I think what we should, my recommendation would be, as these projects come forward, we just include a line that says the lesser of 10% or $250,000.
Right.
We can add
Okay.
that in every resolution, that way, when we have
Yeah,
a
yeah, okay,
resolution
yeah,
for this
exactly.
particular project, it's in that project.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, that works too.
so do we want to amend?
What's that?
Why can't we edit that now?
Because we want to get this done, I think, right?
Well, it only
Yeah.
takes a second to amend it.
Well, this says not to exceed 135, that is 10%, so we,
Right.
in effect, it's serving the same purpose. I think moving forward, what we're saying is, if we're gonna approve it, the next project we approve, we're gonna have language that says either that any change orders that Chiquita can sign will not exceed 10% or $250,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
You know what I
I'm just saying do it now because.
in case something else comes up,
It's in this one, we already have the
but it
135
can't
is
exceed
10%.
10%.
Is it good for this?
Yeah,
Yeah, so, because it's not going to reach 250 without approval. It's only going to go to 135,
and then if it goes
which is
130,
10%.
140, I have to
So we
come
don't,
back.
so just on a go-forward basis, that line would be included.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially for larger projects.
Got that?
That's where it comes in.
Yep.
Good.
And I think everybody kind of would feel, you, staff, everybody would feel a little more comfortable with that.
And what's the
Definitely
amount,
me.
what's the amount that you don't have to come back to the board with?
50.
50,000 is the procurement rule.
Right, 10% of the 135 is what?
13,
No, it's 10% of 1.3 million.
1.3
It's
million.
the 10%.
so it's 135,000,
That's why I'm
which
saying.
makes it less than the 250.
Yeah.
Got it.
So the project would have to be 2.5 million and dollars. And dollars.
To cover this.
Got it.
What we're talking about.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need that motion.
I made that move.
Oh, you did?
Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
We have no advisements.
We do.
Oh,
I did.
We've got advisements since,
I apologize.
Yes, Jen.
Yes, this was, well, because we postponed
Oh,
our
yep.
board meeting, I was able to meet with our CFO and go over our component unit budget, which is not necessarily the oversight of our, the Board of Commissioners here, but it is something in which we, I choose to inform the board as well. So you will notice that there's a document in your file that basically advises you that we went over the budget. We met our budget, in terms of looking at some of the, needs of the properties, that in terms of whether come spring, they're gonna need the driveways or parking lots done, boilers, whatever it might be, through our either reserves or, CFP, depending on the location, et cetera. So this is just to kind of advise you, members of the component unit board have received copies of the actual budget. That concludes my advisement.
all right. We have the committee update.
I'm happy to provide it. Every month we do pop-ups for the food pantry. This month, actually last week, it was Townsend and Townsend and Ida. We provided 25 housing authority children and parents with gifts sponsored by the Elks. We had a Christmas party here. Santa, Mr. and Mrs. Claus came to visit. There was food, there were games, activities. They actually had a choir. The youth, an organization whose name is escaping me actually came and they did Christmas caroling, which was a lot of fun. It was actually, they're called the Scholastic Youth Christmas Carol. They provided us with music. There's pictures in terms of what we've done for the Christmas holiday. We also, let's see, and did I tell you that we do the monthly food distribution in partnership with the regional food bank at those sites? What else did we do? Holiday bargain grocery in Troy. So they graciously donated a bunch of new toys, which we helped distribute to some of our families in addition to families that we can. Let's see. We have, and these are just some of the examples and pictures on the last page of the report of some of the toys that were included in the box. Up and running, like you have been informed, the Resource Center continuously, look for avenues and opportunities to provide resources or connect families with resources. And, they're doing a great job and, look forward to what 2025 will bring and future partnerships. Is there anything else you would like to add, Chairman Bob Simple? Oh, movie night, February, coming up. I want to say it's every Thursday still in February. We have a list of movies. Unfortunately, I don't have that list in front of me right now. I know there's school days and there's some other ones, but we can update you via email because I know the next time we meet, we would have already had our first movie night. So hopefully you'll be able to stop by on one of the events and enjoy yourself popcorn and some food, etc.
We're still looking.
In partnership with Center for Law and Justice.
Still looking for food sponsors.
Oh,
for that. So,
okay.
But it's usually your annual movie series, Black History Month movie series, held downstairs.
Need someone to buy food or someone to come and serve? A food sponsor.
Yeah.
Purchase
Someone
it.
Purchase food.
The person
Yeah.
who purchased.
What kind of
I
food?
get it.
So every night we try, like first night, back in the days, the good old days.
We try to pick a theme,
Right.
yeah.
Soul food,
Yeah.
but then we've had pizza, we've had hot dogs, popcorn like a movie.
We
You
had
know, so
pasta,
Right, we've done
Yeah.
pasta. So it's really, whatever the sponsor
the
wants.
choice of the sponsor.
You guys know Ardra, fried dough?
Oh.
I think she's pretty reasonable. She charges $75 an hour.
Okay,
And so give out,
Over here by the MVP Arena, is that?
yes, she was the one that was there.
yeah, she did our event. Yeah, I thought she was really reasonable. And, that's something that could.
So the thing with the movie night is,
Thursday, I'll take it.
Oh, the
they're
people
typically
up and
watching
down.
the movie,
Yeah, I mean-
yeah.
Do a night of pizza?
Understood.
And then typically after the movie, there's usually some
I can do the
type
first.
of a discussion,
I'll do the first one to get it out of the way.
That would be a distraction then,
yeah.
100%.
Okay. Thank you. So, yeah, first night and movie night.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Exciting. Hope we can stop by. It'll be a lot of fun.
Beautiful.
It's a nice setup. So that concludes the committee report that I have. Shall I continue, Chairman? Go down the line.
It's your show.
You have the monthly financials and vacancy reports. Are there any questions located on those? We are working to fill some of the, vacancies. Some have, more challenges than others, but we are moving in the right direction in some of those areas.
Which page are you on there, Chiquita?
So you'll see the packet, it will be page 2. I don't know if the number's on, I don't know if you numbered them. Yeah, there's no numbers, but,
Okay.
so you see, like, for an example, Steamboat, that is intentional. You see it says 78%. Which one do you have?
I don't know if they.
They don't have a copy of the report?
Which one, sorry?
Oh, actually,
Oh, vacancies,
Yeah.
page 36, is that the one? November 24? Vacancies.
yes, it is page 36. If you look at the package, it really starts with the minutes from last meeting in December. It is page 36.
See, mine doesn't have a page, so I apologize.
Okay.
I think they gave it to, I don't know, they put 2 of them in my,
But it's also
Packet.
in the portal.
okay. I don't know how I ended up with 2, but I guess they wanted to make sure I had everything, I don't know. But, I guess my point is, we are, moving forward, and anticipation of a closing of phase 2 of Steamboat Square. Hopefully, we're looking at possibly October, November of 2025. We have been encouraged to, continue with the planning process, and, we had our resident meeting, last week, which I attended briefly because I had another meeting to go to. We had our relocation specialist that was in attendance and the entire development team to speak to the rest of phase 2 residents about what to anticipate with relocation, et cetera. And then we also met with the commercial tenants that, hold an office there as well, letting them know that, in terms of temporary locations and, what to anticipate as well. As I believe I've shared with you, 230 Green Street would be the first phase of phase 2. Then we'll go forward, from 220 to 200. And then in each cluster of those phases, we'll also do townhomes as well. What else? We had those 2 meetings last week. We'll probably have another one in a couple of months, to provide an update, and as we get closer in anticipation of relocation, which we're currently working with now. So as I stated, you see that the vacancy rate is lower because we intentionally left units vacant so that we can, in anticipation of relocating families from 230 to 200 and 220, et cetera.
Are you getting pushback from the residents about having to relocate and stuff like that?
No.
Good.
There are some concerns, but they're excited because the good thing about phase 2 is that you got to see phase 1 and what to anticipate. And they're looking forward to that. And what has been, a lot of the residents have been there for quite some time, and this has been promised, some of you might have been on the board for quite some time. We've been just talking about renovating Steamboat for I don't know how long. So this is now coming to fruition. It's actually happening. And I believe, in my opinion, when I was at the meeting, they seem more positive and excited.
Okay.
Yes, are there concerns they have to pack up, but, we had our relocation specialist there, as well as our entire development team, as I stated, and we, assured them that no cost to them, we're gonna help them every step of the way like we've done in the past, and we continue to do. That's one thing that we're good at doing. So I think that eliminates some of their, concerns. But there's always, for someone who's been in their apartment for 30 years, that's going to be there's some anxiety associated with that. That's home, and you're asking them to relocate, but they will come back to a much better and improved new home.
Sure. What's the time frame?
In terms of the relocation?
How long?
Well, this is the biggest project, because it's phase 2, and it includes 3 high-rises and all of the townhomes. So that's going to be probably over a course of 3 years to full completion.
Okay.
Or more.
And so they're giving each complex a year
Yes.
of relocation. But with anything, you should say a year and a half. But, question for you, one of the concerns, will the rent go up at all? Or it has nothing to do with the
Rent go
renovation?
up for whom?
For the residents.
So we're converting to RAD. So basically that is Section 8 project based. So typically it will not go up because they qualify. If there's anyone that does not qualify, because it's a RAD conversion, they still have to receive that subsidy up to a certain amount of time frame, whereas then they can pay the full of their rent because they're simply over income, but they're entitled to come back. So does it go up? Not necessarily.
So the buildings at 200, 230, they'll be townhomes? The buildings.
There are townhomes already.
Right.
Those will be
But
renovated.
the high rises are not?
No, there'll be units, all, one bedroom apartments. Now, we might have some tax credit, just like we do here at Steamboat. If some of those families who are over income and pay flat rent, they may be moved into those flat rent units. Well, not flat rent, but tax credit units. But you still have to maintain the affordability. But I can't really answer because I don't know everyone's financial status.
Yeah, different.
So that's why we meet one-on-one and we go over everything.
Good.
In your experience, with new administration, new president, when do you, if there's any effect, when do you usually hear anything?
Well, I will tell you that, there has been conversations for quite some time, over the past 6 months or so. And because you're not necessarily aware of what to anticipate, you have to kind of consider what you have on hand and in front of you. And basically, there were some speculations that some of the subsidies that we are currently receiving would possibly be cut, not to zero, but lower in terms of percentage-wise as opposed to what we currently receive. So based on that, and because of that, we were asked as a housing authority to look at what, our current projects are in terms of operating Section 8, all of the above, in which that administration funds. That being said, we decided to halt issuing Section 8 vouchers because we're not necessarily sure where we will be in terms of the proration of its subsidy. We want to make sure that we can maintain the households that we're currently serving.
You're talking about, new Section 8 vouchers, or?
Correct, we're not issuing.
The people that have them, they're gonna continue to get them, but if somebody tries to come in, it's not gonna work.
We can't issue them.
You can't.
Now, someone who already has a voucher, what we'll
Right.
do is bill their originating voucher holder,
Got it.
or originating housing authority.
Until you get word, right?
You don't have to absorb. Typically, we absorb to increase our utilization, but because, it's just, how do I say it, uncertainty, there's so much uncertainty in terms of the funding, it's best to maintain your budget as it is so that you can maintain the program that you're currently operating under. And then you build the housing authority. So for an example, if someone moves from Texas with a voucher, they can lease up here, but we will just get paid the administrative fee. We will not absorb the 100% of the cost. We will just bill the Texas Housing Authority or wherever they're coming from. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
So we're watching it very closely, just don't know. A lot of uncertainties, and we probably won't know for a little while. So right now, we're just anticipating and looking at the grants and program fundings that we've already locked in, and we're operating accordingly.
So, I'm sorry, refresh my memory, Donald Trump's last term, how did we make out? I know we had COVID and all that stuff, but again, did it get reduced a whole lot?
Well, COVID was unique, so it's hard to tell, because with COVID, we were, given.
So many other things.
Yes, but we were also given certain, I don't know what they would call, pandemic dollars or funding, and also provided a little more flexibility with how we were able to utilize that funding. Now it's back to more restrictive use. I don't know what his administration or how to foresee that, because we're not in a pandemic, and during that period they were, again, they came up with additional dollars to help us, keep families in their homes as much as we possibly could, help, keep landlords, even though those families weren't paying their rent. So there were different, factors that were considered back then, so it was really hard to compare.
But I was thinking 17 to 20, like because COVID didn't start.
Okay, so
You know,
seven, I do.
years in there where,
Yeah, he wasn't there.
and I should remember because
Yeah, we
I'm on
didn't-
the board during that time.
I don't think we dramatically affected,
Yeah, I don't think it was horrible.
because the ramp up for some of the changes didn't hit us, never hit us, because when they would have hit us,
Right.
COVID struck.
Yeah, right.
By the time it was time to implement some of them,
And,
yeah,
Yeah.
we financially took a hit,
yeah,
because of the situation around COVID
correct.
and our inability to evict anybody. But we also took in additional dollars for, support of like PPP and.
Yes. But what happened, so how do I explain it? So you have the federal government, but then you have the state government, right? So while we were probably getting some funding on the federal level, what was happening was there were state laws such as tenant protection that whereas we might have had an additional, let's say, how much would you say we spend under tenant protection now per month? The new rule in terms of, I had to create a whole new position, and what else was it for the carrier, to issue the 5 days,
servers,
the process
yeah.
servers. So that was probably an additional $6,000 to $7,000 a month or more.
Oh, yeah, total, among everything, it was
Yeah.
probably $100,000.
Yeah.
At least.
So although we got some, there were other rules and regulations that we needed to comply that cost us. So, you know, it didn't really help improve us.
Sure.
A lot of it.
And they weren't federally,
Pardon?
they weren't federal
Well,
regulations.
that's what I'm saying. So because federal might have been helping us,
They
the
were,
state was hurting us with the new rules and regulations that required us to take extra steps and cost us over $100,000 or more.
Okay, so, and,
I hope I answered your
you
question.
did,
It's
you
really
did,
hard.
you did, and so how do we figure in this plan of Governor Hochul's with her monies for, developing and increasing affordable housing in our area? Do we,
I think that, you know, it's along the lines with her original initiative. So I think that our plans for what we're doing in Steamboat Phase 2 and, you know, hopefully with other locations is still aligned with her vision. So we continue to, you know, watch and make sure that we're meeting those requirements, working with HCR, following, you know, those rules and regulations and those initiatives in which, because that's how you apply. You know, you have to meet certain criteria in order to meet the, you know, in order to be considered anyway. I'd say that, you know, with the money that's anticipated based on the budget that I heard today and, you know, over the past couple of weeks, I would say, we're hoping, you know, especially with monies coming to Albany, that there's some room for us, looking for some demolition money, looking for renovation money, you know, hopefully to help transform our Lincoln development area and et cetera. Am I answering your question?
yeah. And to Mike's point earlier, we are literally the forefront. If you think about affordable housing and all, like, there's us, you know, Skyline's doing a little something, but we are the major player. We're out there. We're providing the most affordable housing.
number one landlord.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are. Yes.
Yeah, so.
And we continue to strive to be the best, and we can definitely use the money. We
Yeah.
need the money. It's not even about you. We need it, in order to make sure that we can maintain and preserve what we have.
Sometimes you get caught up in the idea that, you know, this is, and it, don't get me wrong, it is. We are a helping organization. At the end of the day, in certain areas, we have to reflect ourselves as a business. We are, because that helps us too in our mission.
Yeah.
We are the biggest landlord in the city of Albany.
Yeah.
And people need to remember that periodically.
And it's a business.
Right.
It is.
That there's a component to
business
that,
side.
there's a component to that absolutely is a business, right? And, you know, if you put us out of business or you make us, the ramifications of that are much more significant than, you know, somebody who owns a couple of small 30-unit apartment buildings.
Correct.
Right. And some of these driving factors, you know, you have to think about, you know, increases in insurance that's constantly rising. You know, you want to, in order for us to continue to provide the service that we do, and we do it well, and we want to continue to do it in that manner, we have to ensure that, like you said, there's aspects that we have to
So
run it like a business.
when the dollars flow in from this budget that are not earmarked for anything, which are fairly significant, you know, what if $200 million,
Yeah.
give or take. You know, we gotta get a seat at the table.
Yeah. Try
Yeah, well,
I think
you know,
you're there.
but that's when it becomes an emphasis on the combination of service and, you know, look what we're doing. We are a big player in the community, and if our buildings go to hell,
And you can't insure it, because that's key.
and which will happen if they
Yeah.
go to hell. You know, God forbid stuff happens. Look at what's going on in California.
Yeah,
Those places won't get replaced by insurance.
no. And it's also, you know, behavioral. You know, I sent out a message to everyone that, you know, everyone will be held accountable based on we're gonna hold you accountable, whether it be enforcement or civil, because those negative actions negatively impact our ability to provide quality housing, because it does affect our insurance.
And if you get again, that's when you have to say to the judge, hey, we're a business here.
Right. Right.
We need the revenue. If we don't have the revenue, the properties fall
Exactly.
into disrepair.
Yeah. And then
Properties fall into disrepair, the largest landlord in the city of Albany
What about the?
looks so good, and then the city gets affected.
Yeah. It's a challenge, but we can continue to deal with it. That concludes my report.
Always live. And I get a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Can I get a second? All in favor?
And,
Meeting adjourned.
great meeting, guys.